Hi guys, welcome to the channel. This is a new channel that I will be using to analyze all things related to law and such. Today, we will be taking a quick look at the CBC news coverage of the recently decided Canadian hockey players' SA trials, starting with the attorney who represents one of the five defendants in this case. I'll take a minute to explain that CBC is the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation similar to BBC and ABC. Let's take a look.
To anyone who is surprised or angered by today's outcome, it is the direct result of the media's ongoing failure to publicize the weaknesses in the prosecution's case as it unfolded. The office of the Crown Attorney knew what today's verdict was likely to be, and the evidence at trial came as no surprise to them or anyone with full knowledge of the investigation. Almost every single feature of the evidence that Justice Caracia identified today as fatal flaws for the Crown was known to prosecutors and to police from 2018. Today's outcome was not just predictable, it was predicted. The Crown Attorney did not have to take this case to trial. Mr. Hart, in particular, was willing to engage in a restorative justice process. He was willing to be publicly named and prepared to use his public platform to teach other athletes about how to ensure that their sexual encounters are responsible and thoughtful.
So far, we can see that it looks like the defense attorney is being relatively objective and clear as to the facts of this case while being critical. I also want to point out with this person with the signage in the back. It's important to note that under Canadian SA laws, victims will automatically be granted anonymity, which is why it says EM on their signs. Let's continue.
Instead of pursuing restorative justice, the Crown forced a distressing and unnecessary trial to the detriment of Mr. Hart, his co-defendants, the complainant, and the Canadian public. To anyone who is
Okay, fantastic. Okay, so let's take a look at the CBC's reaction to this verdict.
It's been a challenging day.
Tell me about why it's been challenging, and tell me about
So I want you guys to take note of the body language of the host here, as he has a non-confrontational or avoidance demeanor when presenting facts of the case as it relates to the wars of the justice.
when you hear the judge talking about her reasoning and saying that the evidence that the complainant has brought is not credible or reliable.
Really clearly for me, from my own experience, there's a huge difference between the criminal system and the civil system. With the words that I would challenge us all not to forget is burden of proof beyond a reasonable doubt, evidence. I'll reflect directly on my experience where I was asked continually around dates and times and locations by sex crime detectives, to which I wanted to scream all the time, everywhere. So the reality of what you need to try to recall to actually attain the level of evidence that is necessary as a survivor is very challenging. I think there's a lot of gaps in the criminal system with respect to coercive control, with respect to rape responses, and I think we're seeing that here. And further, I just have an incredible level, pardon me,
It's okay. It's okay.
of empathy for what she's been through. I would not want anyone to walk away from this experience out of a trauma-informed place of respect to opinionate in public, because 30% of women in this country have been sexually assaulted. So please, on behalf of us all, don't talk about it with people you don't know. And then I'll also just share, going through being put on a stand and cross-examined to the extent that she was. This is trauma that I have no doubt beyond the verdict that she will live with, and I have the deepest level of empathy and love for her experience. I'm scared because I'm scared because this should never be taken as it didn't happen.
This is where I give my due respect to survivors of SA and SA related violence. The hockey culture in Canada is similar to any other sport related culture around the world and has rightfully been going through a shift in culture. However, our legal system is founded and is based on the fundamental presumptions of innocent until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, as it should. We cannot allow our emotions to dictate how guilty or not guilty someone is. This type of behavior is immediately identified as an emotional appeal in the legal industry, one that is arguably designed to discount the realities of a certain situation. Just to reiterate, the justice announced the defendant is not credible or reliable.
In my opinion. And what I'm scared about is I work every day in sport around sexual violence and consent and other forms of maltreatment, that the verdict of this case would ever be taken as, well, we don't have a problem with the hockey culture, or it would ever be taken as frivolous. That really scares me because I think it could send us backwards in very, very important work and acknowledgement of what.
Next up, I want to bring your attention to Acumet Law Corporation video.
But credibility and reliability is the crux of any trial. For a witness to have their testimony be believed, they have to first be found to be credible, meaning that they are telling the truth, and reliable, meaning that their capacity to recall the events that they're testifying about was not compromised in any way, whether they couldn't see what they saw very well because of a vision problem, whether they'd consumed alcohol and so their memory was affected by alcohol. So the judge found both credibility and reliability to be a problem here. A criminal trial is, at its core, yes, a search for the truth. And because it's a search for the truth, you cannot start with the assumption that because somebody comes into court and says this person did this illegal thing, that they must have done it until they prove otherwise. And if you start to bring into the courtroom the believe survivors rhetoric, what you're doing is you're creating that kind of a presumption. You're creating a presumption of guilt. And then you're no longer searching for the truth. Because demonstrating your innocence is not a search for the truth. It's not determining what happened. It's just trying to prove that what is said didn't happen. And it's very difficult to disprove a negative.
So there you have it. Another emotional, completely unjust appeal to the consumers of CBC. And CBC being the CBC, they have disabled their comment section, further cultivating the echo chamber that they have aimed to create, where outrage can be fostered and weaponized. As always, I will leave links to these videos in the comments section for your reference. Until next time, stand on reasonable grounds.